Mojo Monday. Rick Hale, how are you?
I'm great. Mojo Monday to you, Brad.
Started it off with a little Stevie Ray Vaughan for us.
Stevie Ray, baby.
All right. Well, I know you got Buck Rogers behind you, but we'll roll with Stevie Ray on a Monday morning. All right. Here's the scoop. Today's topic: team. Together, everyone achieves more. You know, Rick, I think we've all heard the saying, well, 1 + 1 = 4. And it's almost been said so much that it's like, what's that really mean? Like, break that down. What does 1 + 1 = 4?
I think that's the assumption that when two people come together, the magnified results of their collective presence creates greater energy or results than the two of them alone, or even just combined equally, that there's a multiple.
Sure.
That shows up.
So this person has an output, this person has an output. Together, that equals 2. But if you put them together to working together, it could equal 4, right? And that's kind of the concept of a team, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So, you know, why is this team concept such an important concept to us to grasp and get our head wrapped around? One, obviously, the output makes sense, but I think it's deeper than that. There's some feelings attached to this. There's some cultural stuff attached to this. Why don't you set this up for us?
Well, I think number one, there's only so far you could go on your own. So everyone has innate abilities. Everyone has innate drive. Everyone has a natural style. And it may serve you well in certain sectors and capacities, but when you're outside of your strength zone, it's debilitating and it's draining. And so the concept of teaming is that, you partner with people who are synergistically complementary. And then that combined energy is where the multiple shows up, where you stop spending time doing things that drain and deplete. You start doing more things that give you energy that complement the partnership. And then that combined creates that multiple. So that's part of it. And the experiential side of being in business with people, so that if you're having an off day or down day, they pick you up and boost you. And, when you're in business with the right people, that cultural piece is such an important element to staying the course when it comes to, corporate mission or purpose.
Absolutely. And this leaks into personal too. Like if you have a significant other, or a spouse, I mean, it's a team. And it's certainly 1 + 1 = 4 most days, but it has to work, right? It has to work, and it has to all kind of get in sync. I use the analogy of if we were all in a boat together, are we all rowing in the same direction and in alignment, rowing at the same pace? And that's kind of the sweet spot, right? But the truth is, when we first start down this journey, it's messy, and not everybody's rowing in the same direction. Not everybody's rowing at the same pace. You might even use the term group, right? Yet when it all gets in sync and gets into alignment, that's where the magic really happens. But before we start talking about that, I think there's this concept of generalist versus a specialist. And really, that's where I think we need to start today when we start talking about teams. So in my words, and then I want to hear your take on it, the whole point of being an individual is you're trying to do everything. And we learn early on we're not great at everything, because that's the generalist, right? The doctor that does everything just kind of has his hands in a lot of different knowledge bases, but the specialist focuses on certain things. And in our world, that specialization, when you start to bring other people in, is what creates that extra output where 1 + 1 = 4. What's your take?
You're exactly right. So when, again, certain things give you energy and certain things take away energy. And when you're operating outside your strength zone, it just depletes energy. So when you're depleting energy, it's hard to stay the course, stay focused. And it's, so step one is probably to figure out what your gold medal attribute is. What's the one thing that makes you great? And make sure that you kind of, put a sticky note on that seat and go, that's my seat. And then figure out what other seats complement you, to the extent that you create a holistic, balanced experience with specialists. And specialists not only outperform, but they out earn generalists, typically multiples, 5, 10 to 1. or more. That's the big bucks go to specialists who are really good at their lane and not just generally good at everything, but not excellent, if you will.
Yeah. So after we kind of understand our superpower, our specialization, what do you think is kind of the next thing we need to focus on or understand about teams?
It's isolate or identify, better stated, the seats again that complement you to the extent that you go home feeling great about your role, knowing someone else managed their role effectively. And the other thing that drains a lot of energy, and I hear this a lot, like, I don't want to hire people, it's just I got to manage people. And my theory is, if you have to manage someone, they're the wrong person for the role, not the wrong person in general. And if you've got people, that goes back to your, on the boat, if they're rowing in the opposite direction from you, man, at best, you're doing circles at best. Worst case, you're stuck still doing nothing. And so it's pretty important to make sure, you identify the job description, but also overlay that with the cultural side of personality and energy. And are they, a cultural fit to the dynamic of where you're headed as a collective team?
Absolutely. And I'd actually add on top of that behavior. Like everybody, behavior is we like to think we're all well-rounded, and we're not. We're well-rounded in one concept, but not all things, meaning not everybody's super social. Not everybody's highly attentive to detail, right? So as you start to build out these teams and the specialization and all this stuff, behavior certainly plays a role too, because it allows you to go faster when you get the right people in the right seats on the right bus in the right specialties, right?
Yeah. And some of this ties directly to just having a purposeful mission that everyone buys into and believes has merit and, the capacity to take them the distance in terms of their goals. I'm asked all the time, how do you retain people? What's the secret? And the secret is to know where they're going and why, and support them holistically, and then make sure that their skill set aligns with the job that's, so that it's rewarding, and that the collective mission is bigger than them, that every day they have to show up and give their best to grow into that collective mission.
Absolutely.
And so another challenge would be to step back and just, what is your big why, and what's the mission you're on that other people find incredibly magnetic, especially the right people.
Perfect. So obviously this is a journey, right? You start as an individual, you hit that natural ceiling of achievement based on your own superpower. You start to get into business with people. You learn to figure out other people's skill sets versus your weaknesses, or your skill sets, and hire or leverage out your weaknesses. But at some point in time, there's a sweet spot. And when it all kind of comes together, like, you realize the group becomes the team, as we like to say. But why do it? Why is that a sweet spot?
Well, I mean, it's funny for me and my trajectory with my team. It was really, as much as I'd like to say we want to be seventh level, we found that fourth, fifth, somewhere between the fourth and fifth levels, where we've got all the necessary admin, we've got enough salespeople that specialize in buyer and listing sales. We've got marketing dialed in. We've got, management and coaching covered. We felt like we kind of had the right energy and, 10 or 12 people. And we like where we are, and we like the production, and we like the net results financially. So that was our sweet spot. But again, it's about your vision and trajectory and what you expect and want. And, the one thing about constantly keeping an eye open to advancing your potential to lead and grow people is, as long as you're, cast a big enough umbrella, if you will, to shield enough people from the storm called life, you'll always draw talent. And the infinite potential that exists in growing concentric circles is an awesome thing to consider. And you ask why the sweet spot? I think because when you hit the sweet spot, you're important in your lane again, and everyone else has their complementary lanes. And at some point in life, you may decide that you want to step back or make a change or move into a different role. And if your sweet spot is clearly defined, it's much easier to replace yourself, and it's much easier to augment talent to make sure that the sustainability of your team isn't detrimented because you have an off season, or heaven forbid, you have a medical malady or crisis, or want to take care of a parent, or, and you have to leave the city for 6 months or more. In fact, Gary Keller defines the definition of a business is an entity that if you left it for your entity, your business, you leave it for 6 months and you come back, it's as good or better than when you left. And so I think when you have the sweet spot, there's enough complementary talent around you to fill those voids and take care of business when you can.
Absolutely. And you even took it further than I was thinking when I threw the question to you. I think there's a sweet spot when it feels like a family, or there's all of a sudden a culture that gets created, this magnetic energy that you can't force to happen. It just kind of starts to develop where, I mean, I start caring about you, you start caring about me. Together, we're cheering everybody on. We actually like being in business together. And it creates just this really cool energy around that team. And culture, one of the best definitions I heard of culture was it's difficult to understand from everybody on the outside, but it's really hard to explain from everybody on the inside. Meaning, I don't know how to explain why we're cool, but we're just cool. And everybody on the outside is going, I'm not sure I really see, I don't understand. Like it's only on the inside that it makes sense. And that's, to me, that's the sweet spot. But at the end of the day, I think there's things that happen, like you were talking earlier about, like the rituals that happen and things like that. Why don't you take us there for a minute?
Well, I mean, when the collective's bigger than an individual and there are things about it that feel, to your point, like a family, you don't quit families. You might quit a job at some point or transition, but it's hard to leave something you consider super personal and connected. And the gift of rituals is that I guess when it's why fraternities are so popular in college, because they have tremendous rituals and a rite of passage. And then there's a purpose behind who and what they are, because there's a dozen different types of fraternities. And and the same thing happens inside of a business, is when all of a sudden the energy shifts into family, and again, you rally. The rally cry is your mission statement to make a difference in the community, or to make a difference in the lives of people and helping them find their bliss and their dream homes and their experience. It changes things. And and rituals are part of that. Is they lead to stories, and they lead to experiences, and they lead to documented traces on a map that say, hey, you remember when? And when you can cite 4 or 5 cool things in the last 6 months that your team and individual or as a collective succeeded in or with, man, it's cool. I mean, those stories are what lead to a legacy.
Yeah. You say rituals. I was watching the NBA championship game the other night, and I was watching the Golden State Warriors do their little handshake, and every one of them did it right at the beginning of the game. And it was just their ritual to their team. And it was an insider thing. Me watching from the outside, I'm going, that's a little kooky, but whatever, right? Like I'm not the one doing the handshake yet, but to them, it was a ritual. It was special. It was part of their team. They're in their sweet spot. Obviously, they're in the NBA championship right now. But at the end of the day, why does all this matter? Like, why did we choose this for Mojo Monday this morning? What's the challenge, or what's the takeaway from this conversation today?
It's a pretty complex conversation that we've tried to summarize into 15 or so minutes, to be honest. And it number one, I think it's finding what gives you the greatest joy and what role and position on the team, and making sure that you stick to your gold medal, attribute, or the things that make you great. And because it just leads to a more rewarding day in and out experience. And then the back half of it is, if that skill doesn't fulfill the mission, the entire mission, that means you're going to need support. You're going to need help. It doesn't mean hiring a full-time $100,000 support staff member, but it could. And if they bring 200,000 in value, why wouldn't you? That's a common question. And Gary would say there's no job too small to outsource or delegate. And so just recognize what's keeping you from that strength zone that gives you joy, and that also creates more energy to the bottom line of your business. And so, 1, gold medal. 2, what are the vacancies or holes that if you filled changes the energy you wake up with and that you go to bed with? That whole wake up inspired and go to sleep fulfilled. I mean, who do you need on the team that counterbalances the gap and gives you and gets you excited to come to work, because they're going to do great work and reflect what your standards, and vice versa. And then the third piece of it is, analyze where you are in that trajectory of a career path and life in general, and make sure that you're, kind of building all of the necessary key components so that one day your business is saleable, delegatable, or, assignable or shared. And unless you've got structure and culture and a mission statement and a track record, you're not nearly attractive enough to really garner a fair exchange when it comes time to do that. So, at some point, you may shift gears, and it's a beautiful thing. To me, freedom means passive income, and it also means the ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, and how you want, without being completely tethered to a job that occupies all of your waking time.
There you go.
That was a mouthful.
That was a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, there's two things, like we talked about at the beginning: together, everyone achieves more. But the other saying is, no one succeeds alone.
Yeah.
So whether you're building a team around you or we're your team, team's important. So Rick Hale, Mojo Monday, my friend.
Mojo Monday. All right.
All right.
I love you guys.